Hey, this is Matt McClean, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use odd time signatures in Logic and superimpose them over standard 4/4 time signatures to get the most out of your drummer function. So why would you want to do this? One thing that I have noticed is the drummer does some things really well. It does fills and ghosting on the snare in such a way that it would be really time consuming to go in and try to paint it or perform it on a standard keyboard. However, there is a tendency for the drummer to put the snare on the 2 and 4 and the kick on the 1 of every measure, which is fine, but it starts to be played out after a while. And this is true for all of the drummers. They all do their different things a little bit, and you can mouse around with things in the XY pad and etc. But they all start to sound similar after a while. So let's just listen to what I mean here. Kyle, this is the default drum beat. You probably heard this before if you use Logic, but as a point of reference. So pretty standard. So let's just see what happens if we ask Kyle to do something extremely difficult. And I'm just going to jump into deep water here and say, well, Kyle, what if you played in 11/16 time? Okay, let's see what he does. So it's different. I don't know if it's good, but we'll go back here to 4/4. There's a reason why. He was just playing in 11/16 time, and nobody really knows what to do in 11/16 time in real life or in virtual reality here. So he needs a point of reference. So what we're going to do is have him listen to a track in 4/4, so to keep his bearings. So I just created a loop up here, an 8-bar loop. This is going to stay the same as I change all of my time signatures. So this will continue to be the same number of beats. So just sort of to make sure we don't get lost in odd time signature land. And then I'm going to go in and use a pretty standard loop. Let's look for like a funk bass line. Bass. Oh, let's see. Saw one there. Funk. Oh, funky pop bass. Okay. Okay, let's just drop that in there. Maybe turn it down a little bit. And I'm going to loop that. And then we'll go in here and do that again. So 11/16 time. That's craziness. Let's see what he does. Totally different beat. Oops, well, forgot to do one critical thing. He wasn't listening to the other track. So this is the critical step here, is you have to go into the follow function and select it. Make sure that you have selected some track. Obviously, I'm just using a boring factory loop, but in a perfect world, you use something of your own creation. And now let's see if he makes it a little bit funkier. Okay, cool. So you probably didn't know that Kyle had that in him. Pretty cool and funky. We can make it even more complex. He's not even swinging it. So I could ask him to swing a little bit, do some more fills, and I don't know, more ghost notes, more of the cool stuff that the drummer does. So let's check this out. All right, so arguably Kyle is a bit of a lunkhead, and some of these other drummers do a better job. So let's jump in and go with fan favorite Gavin. So Gavin, everyone loves Gavin. He always does cool stuff, even in 4/4, but even cooler now in this land. So I'm gonna do the same thing. Ghost notes up, fills up, swing it a little bit, and let's see what he has to offer. Okay, so I'm loving that. It's starting to sound like Dennis Chambers or Keith Carlock, or maybe even like Omar Hakim. If you've heard that latest Daft Punk album, the track, the Marauder track, uh, they cut him loose at the end and he has some fun. So what he's doing, or what all these guys have a tendency to do, with their really funky drum beats in a 4/4 format, is superimpose these weird time signatures. And great drummers can keep track of one time signature, which is in this case the bass line, while playing in 11/16 or some other weird time signature. And we can get some great results here. So that's just one potential idea. Here is another potential idea. Let's say we like what old Gavin does with all his ghosting and fills and stuff, but his kick is a little too busy. So what I'm going to do is go in and create just a drum kit, and then I'm going to turn Gavin's take into MIDI. And then I'm going to go in and I'm just going to mute all of his kicks. So I selected all the kicks here, and then Control M will mute them all. And just listen to it quick. Okay, so no kick. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to ask another one of our friends to lay down the kick. So I'm going to go into Benny Land in the R&B section. Okay. We got Benny. And he doesn't need to play anything on the snare or hi-hat. We're just going to have him do a kick drum here. And notice that he continues to follow the track that we had selected. So that saves a little bit of time. So now we're going to have Benny laying down the kicks. You can see the kicks in here. And Gavin's take is going to be playing all the cool high-end stuff. So really cool. And notice how they even do like a fill in the end. They know the loop is coming around in 4/4 time, 8 measures of 4/4. It looks like 12 measures here, but we know that it's not, because we set our original loop as a point of reference. So let's just get rid of this take. I'm going to do something even crazier here. So we ask him to do the impossible, play in 11/16 time. I'm just going to do kick, snare, hi-hat. What if I go in and ask him to mix up the time signature? Let's do 7/16 for a little while, and then how about 9/8? We'll do 9/8 for a while. Maybe 5/4. That's another weird one. 5/4. Okay, cool. Any other ideas? 7/8. It's pretty standard odd time signature. Oops. Let's try 7/8, and maybe we'll go back to some. How about 7/16? 9/16. How about? We'll do 9/16. Okay, so maybe 11. There. So that is basically the impossible. Nobody can do that. Change time signatures a bunch of times in a single 8 measure loop in 4/4 time. But let's see if old Benny can hang. Yeah, Benny can hang. That was pretty cool. I didn't love all of it, but I just, I was clicking around randomly there, and I got some really cool, interesting results. So you've seen the hybrid drummer thing where you use some notes of one guy and some notes of another guy. Here I've gone in and sliced and diced and asked him to play all sorts of crazy time signatures. The key thing is make sure you have it following some track in 4/4 time. So let me show you another potential cool thing. Let's let's close that one and save it. Here's a standard way to break up 4/4 time. So I got crazy on that last one and had them do 11 and 9 and 7 and 5. Well, you can just have 4/4 broken up into, for example, a measure of 7 and a measure of 9. 7 plus 9 is 16. 16 eighth notes. It's just two measures of 4/4 time. And what we're doing is displacing the kick. And this is a pretty standard move. In this case, anticipating the 1 by an eighth note. But when you do this kind of game, you can see in my time grid here, measure of starts in 7/8, 9/8, 7/8. The ideas will be a little bit more cohesive. The other stuff is more like a drum break or almost like a solo. But let's give this a listen. Who we have? Let's see. We have Jesse. Keep in mind, this is Jesse, the rock drummer. I mean, most of these rock guys are lunkheads if you ask them to play in standard 4/4 time. But this, well, you'll see. So you notice his ideas they're still crazy, but he played a crash on measure 5 here, which is where you'd expect it to be. So the way he framed his ideas is a little bit more standard. So you could break measures of 4/4 in other ways like this. So you could maybe do a measure of 5/8 and a measure of 11/8. For example, there are a million options, and I get in there and explore them because this drummer function is cool. Like the honeymoon wore off for me, and then I got in and started doing this, and wow, it's really cool. In Rockland here, Ian and Jesse have had pretty good luck with them. Obviously, Gavin is really good. In Songwriter Land, this dude, I can't even know what his name is, Levi or Lenny or something. He's pretty cool, and then we heard a little bit of Benny. Benny is cool. These guys do cool things in Odd Time Land. Just remember to turn the fills up and make sure you can hear the ghost notes. And notice I didn't even really get around and mess with all the standard things that other tutorials tell you how to do. So there are infinite permutations. Get in, use odd time signatures in 4/4 and make cool stuff happen. I'll be really interested to see what people are able to come up with. Okay, good night.
When I first came to Pyramind, I had searched the forums and I had searched online, I had read magazines, I had talked with people, but it wasn't enough. What I needed to do was I needed to watch someone mix, start from scratch, and make their way up to a professional project.
I take them through all the steps and break it down piece by piece. I want them to understand how sound interacts in the environment, number one. Number two, I want them to understand how instruments behave in a room, how to capture those instruments. Here's a microphone. What does a microphone go to? Here it is in a real-world environment. Now let's go back to the classroom and dissect that.
After a certain amount of time within the core program, you have access to the studios, right? And you have access to the microphones. And you have access to just bring in whoever you want and record. The first two Tumbleweed Wanderers EPs, they were both completely tracked here.
I brought my band in, we set up drums, did overdubs, had other Pyramind students on board as engineers, and we had a really, really good time tracking those songs.
There's a lot of hands-on experience. You get to see bands get recorded, you get to be involved with setting up the mics, the miking techniques, the compressors, how everything in a studio flows. It's good to have that knowledge and the hands-on experience with the professionals that have done that kind of work.
There's no shortage to what you can do. It's a supportive environment that says, here is a space where you can be creative and mess up, and not only will we not judge you for messing up, we'll applaud you in those efforts.